This is Continuum Drag, a weekly podcast where we watch sci-fi, fantasy, and everything in between.
This week, Forever Knight, Season 3, Episode 22.
And so, in your eyes, I'm the devil. No. Not the devil, Lacroix. What then? You are my closest friend.
Welcome to Continuum Drag, the podcast where everybody dies. I'm Luke, here with my co-host Jordan. What's real, Jordan?
Have we ever seen a show where essentially everyone dies at the end?
I loved it, man. It was so funny. It's just like, dead, 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 dead. I'm like, let's go. Let's kill everybody.
Characters dead off screen. Characters dead in the episode. End it. People die. You're like, oh, this
show is over.
The show is over. Yeah, they want to let you know the show's over.
That's it. We've made it, Jordan. We've taken the escape pod. We've skipped all of Season 3. Even though we were only going to watch the top 3 episodes, we're not even watching those. We're getting right to the finale of Forever Knight.
Yeah, although we sort of buried the lead a little bit there by mentioning that some of these characters are going to die. 2 of the characters from Season 2 that died before this episode apparently die off screen in the last episode of Season 2. So, like, we wouldn't have seen them in Season 3 at all. They just died in the last episode.
Oh, is that, you think it was in the last episode? I didn't know when they died. I knew there was a retool because he has a new partner and a new captain, but...
I looked it up, yeah, so we'll just say now, before we get into it, Skanky and... what was the new captain's name?
Amanda Cohen.
They both die in, I believe it's a plane crash, but
it's
they both die...
It's a helicopter explosion, Jordan.
But it happens off camera, and it's in the last episode of Season 2, so they just retool for Season 3.
That's interesting. I mean, it's not exactly off camera, because we see a flashback to it, and we see the helicopter explode.
That's true. I think it's just everything I've read, they kept saying, like, I guess they didn't get the death that people maybe had wanted. I'm assuming the actors maybe were already off the lot.
Yeah, listen, even in the flashback when I watched it, I was like, this is probably not what anyone wanted. Because it's just like Skanky, or Nick looks up in the sky and he sees the helicopter, and the helicopter explodes, and he's like, Skanky! I'm like, Skanky was in a helicopter?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I have to say, there's a couple episodes, I was looking through some tropes of the show and some stuff, and I pulled a couple episodes of a few plot lines we didn't see for episodes, and I'll just tell you real quick. There's one that was, here's the plot of the episode. Natalie uses vampire blood to increase a mentally challenged teenager's intelligence to enable him to act as a witness in a murder investigation.
Ooh.
I know. I saw that. I was like, ooh, that will be handled with kid gloves and all nuance possible.
There is an episode about AIDS, I believe, as well, that I was a little nervous about.
There's also one. Here's something I also learned. Apparently, in this universe, Luke, in one episode, this episode called Word of God, apparently male vampires can't have erections, so blood drinking is not just a part of sex, but a substitute for sex.
Oh, interesting.
One last thing I learned was Lacroix's daughter, her name was Devia? Apparently, she comes back in an episode, and he apparently stuck her in a sarcophagus. That's where she's been all this time. She comes out and wants to have sex with him, and he won't do it because she's his daughter, and she is like really pushing for some reason. And then he apparently has the line he always goes, I always thought evil was a finite entity until you showed me otherwise. Even I have my limits. And I was like, ooh, that's another one that's doesn't sound too hot.
I'm interested in that one. I'm interested in his super evil daughter.
Yeah, but apparently he just stuck her in a sarcophagus for like a couple thousand years.
That's great. That's great character motivation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you get bored in there.
Oh, yeah. You go quite crazy, Jordan. Quite crazy.
Anyways.
Well, Jordan, should we recast this movie as a modern blockbuster? Should we decide what a new version of Forever Knight would look like?
A new and improved version as a multi-billion-dollar movie from 2023. They're like, hey, what's an IP that's sitting there ready to use, and someone says Forever Knight.
We're spending Avatar money on this.
That's right. Of course. Well, we know it's going to be a big hit with the cast we're putting together.
Well, first up, Jordan, Nick Knight, our star hero.
Okay, well, I have 2 picks as per usual, and I have 2 picks for everything. And I thought Nick's kind of like, he just needs to be mopey. He doesn't really need to be a very strong actor. He just needs to walk around and look pouty and stuff. And I thought, who's a good, really pouty actor? And like ladies still would like him. And so I thought old Jon Snow himself, Kit Harington.
Kit Harington, interesting. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely the direct-to-DVD version of this.
Yeah. You're right. I did just say a multi-billion-dollar version. I don't know if he's that, but I was thinking mopey. I do have a second pick, but give me who you think.
Sure. Well, a little tease behind the scenes here. We're recording this literally during the Oscar ceremony.
That's right.
So I've got possible Oscar winner Austin Butler, Elvis Presley himself.
Oh, okay. I didn't see Elvis, and I don't think I've seen him in anything, so I don't know anything other than he was Elvis. But
he's very
sure.
handsome. He's got that very gaunt face you want from a vampire. And he really puts himself into the role. So I think that might bring a little thing. And if he wins this Oscar, Jordan, look out.
Well, I think we have to hedge our bets as whether he's going to win or not. I think he's going to, right? Are we going to sound dumb now when this comes out?
I think let's call it right now. Let's call it weeks in advance or weeks after the fact. Austin Butler won an Oscar.
Yeah, we'll just edit this if we're wrong. We'll be like, he definitely is not the winner.
There's definitely no way for us to check during this recording.
The second pick I have is another Oscar winner, also for playing a famous singer, musician. I thought also in the same vein of like, who's kind of good at being like kind of mysterious and stuff. Rami Malek.
Rami Malek. Oh, that's an interesting choice. It's not bad. I went a little older for my second choice, but I kind of was trying to find that handsome but a little off-putting vampire-y kind of thing, and I went with Joaquin Phoenix.
Joaquin Phoenix. I thought you went Jeff Bridges, maybe. You said older.
That's like ancient, Jordan. That's an elderly man.
Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah, I kind of like that. But I think, you know what, though? I think, what's his name? Skippy Tyler? What's that guy's name?
Austin Butler.
Austin Butler. I knew he had 2 surnames. I think because he's going to win this Oscar, which we'll edit later, I think he's the one we have to do because we need an Oscar winner.
Yeah, we definitely need Oscar winner Austin Butler. I agree. I've seen Elvis. I think he could pull it off.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, so who's next up? Is it Natalie Lambert?
Of course, Dr. Natalie Lambert, the coroner.
Okay, I have 2 picks. I don't feel terribly confident, but I have 2 people. I'll give you the first one. The show was pretty good and everything I saw. I don't know. I think like Marvel money's probably drying up. She needs something to do, so I went with Elizabeth Olsen.
Oh yeah. Is Elizabeth Olsen? Is it over for her? Are we at are we at peak Elizabeth Olsen? Can we take any more?
I think she might be. I think her heyday might be done. I think she needs to start like showing up in independent movies. You know.
I like her, but I do feel like I've become burnt out on her.
Well, so who do you have?
Well, I went with, because I was trying to think about Natalie, and she's a little more nebbish, actually. She's a bit of a little nerdy girl, as I think maybe they don't lean into enough on the show. So I tried to like put her in that sort of like scientist. She's not necessarily like a supermodel. She's more like a scientist who's always working. And so I tried to pick a couple fun, interesting characters to fill that role. And my first choice was Beanie Feldstein.
Okay.
Best known perhaps as Jonah Hill's sister, but I think she has a certain look to her.
I find her a little bit annoying. Is that terrible for me to say?
I mean, I can't affect your personal choices.
Yeah, I don't know. I know people are probably upset. I just found her a little annoying. I think I've only seen her maybe once or twice, so perhaps that's not fair. I'm not saying she's not right for this role, but personally, I'd be like, yeah, really? Well, here's my second pick. English actress, just coming off of I think she's English. She might not be. I think she's English. Coming off of Game of Thrones 2, whatever that show's called. Game of Thrones. This time it's personal. Olivia Cook. I saw her in a couple things. I think, oh, she's a good actress.
Olivia Cook. I can't picture her. What else is she in?
I don't know. It was independent stuff. She was in that movie. Remember the guy couldn't hear anymore, and they were in a band together.
Oh yes.
I think she didn't have eyebrows in that. I'm the worst. If I don't have someone who tell me the titles and names of people, it's horrible. It's like I guessing game.
I went with my second choice as Mindy Kaling because I was thinking sort of like, again, interesting choice for like a coroner. You're going to say she's annoying too, aren't you?
Yeah, it's just me. It's just my personal. I'm not nothing against. I'm sure she's a lovely person. I also find her a little bit annoying. Yeah.
Let me ask you a quick question, Jordan.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Dr. Natalie Lambert in the show?
Yeah. Dr. Natalie, I feel, is a character. Even after all these episodes, I still don't know who she's supposed to be, because by the end it seems like she's like in love with Nick, but I never got that sense for the first couple episodes or first couple seasons. So I don't know who's your character. She couldn't be less developed.
But you don't find her a little bit annoying, is what you're saying.
No, but I don't find her a little bit annoying. However, you know what? I think you have a better take on this than me. So disregard my annoyances. Who do you think would make sense for this role?
I'm trying to remember who you said, and one of them I don't know, and the other one I don't remember.
Elizabeth Olsen. You said you were done with her.
Oh, yeah. No, not Elizabeth Olsen, I don't think. I can't go that way, I'm sorry. Let's go with your second one, though. Let's go with Olivia Moon, or whatever her name was.
Olivia Cook.
I'm going to just trust you on this Olivia Cook, that she's an up-and-comer that's really going to bring something to this role. I can't picture who she is. I have no idea, but I'm going to trust you on this one.
Okay. All right, let's go with that.
I don't want you to be annoyed the whole time we're making this.
I have nothing to do with it. I'm just casting. You guys make this movie. Okay, I think here's where I think the show's it's gonna really make or break it. We got to go with LaCroix.
Absolutely. This is the one. This is the scene stealer. This is the guy who's going to chew up all the scenes with everybody. It's going to be a great time. This is where you're coming to the movie in some ways.
Mm-hmm. So my first pick is just because he's in everything. I think everyone seems to love him, and he doesn't. There's no more roles for anyone else. So I put Pedro Pascal.
Pedro Pascal, eh? Interesting. Yeah. I mean, everyone does love him. That's true. He's very very watchable man. Yeah, I'm trying to think how this would work with him. Maybe I could see it. Maybe.
Yeah, it's a different character.
I also just tried to think of like real scene stealing character actors for this. So my first choice was Michael Shannon.
Oh, I really like that. Yeah, it's better than mine. I went within a similar direction, but yours is a better choice.
Now, who do you have for number 2?
Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, there's a move there. There's a move there for sure.
Yeah, but I think Michael Shannon's great. I think that's great. Also, now, not annoying.
You haven't heard my second choice yet, though.
Okay, who's that?
I want someone who's going to steal the scene. He has to be older. He has to be the older vampire, and is really just going to like surprise the audience, and really like every time he's on screen, you're going to be like, I can't believe this.
Jeff Bridges.
And that is LaCroix is played by Snoop Dogg.
Okay, you know what? It's funny. I like it. However, I'm going to say this. Based on our first 2 leads, I think that's a different movie.
You're not wrong. Maybe he can't keep up with the acting at that point. So
if our leads had been different, I think Snoop Dogg would be a great choice. But I think just because we're making a prestige movie here at this point, and no offense to Snoop Dogg, I don't think he's going in a prestige movie.
All right. Well, who do you want to go with then?
It's got to be Michael Shannon.
All right. We'll go with Michael Shannon then. I agree. He'll do a great job.
Who do we got next?
Jeanette, the I guess French. Let's keep her French. The French vampire who runs a nightclub.
Yeah, I have 2 choices, and I realized I was trying to because I think one point I did these, and we were making fun of how old my choices were. So I've been trying to really pick like younger actors and actresses. So, but now I'm like, maybe these are too young because I have trouble differentiating people's ages at this point. But my first pick was another actress. I'm not sure what we say at this point. That seems to be in everything, which is Anya Taylor-Joy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she's definitely everywhere. She has a vampire-y look.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I could see that. I, as I sort of alluded to, have kept it very French. So I've got 2 options here.
Who do you got?
I've got Léa Seydoux from what she's in the James Bond movie Spectre, the new one, and then also I believe Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol.
Yeah, I also already think that's a better pick.
All right, who's your second?
Yeah, see, I went with the actress. Again, I'm trying to like, who's hip and the kids like. I picked the actress from Sex Education, Emma McKay.
Oh, yeah, I don't think I've seen that. So another one that I maybe don't have. She's quite young, isn't she? Is she Adam McKay's daughter?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
I'm not sure. I think Adam McKay's daughter's out there somewhere, bouncing around as an actor.
Sorry. I always feel sometimes when we say stuff like this, there's someone listening to this just screaming at us right now. Like, you guys don't know anything. And it's true. I don't.
I'm going to mispronounce this name, and I apologize to, everyone, because this is what this entire show is about, is me mispronouncing names. But it's Marion Cotillard. Is that how? I'm not sure if that's how you say it. She's the actress from Inception.
Oh, Coitard.
Coitard?
I'm a big fan of her. I think she has the most lovely eyes.
I thought she would maybe be good. She's got the French thing going. She's a real legit actress.
Oh yeah, I think she should be in it. She's great.
Marion Cotillard. That's what we're gonna go with.
Coitard or something. Yeah, it's something to that effect.
All right, I'll put her in the cast then. I wrote it down phonetically and I still couldn't pronounce it.
Okay, who do you got for Detective Don Shanky? And in the movie, I think Skanky. I was gonna say I think we should pronounce it differently in the movie. It should be like Shanke.
Shanke? No, I think we gotta go Skank. That's what people are
Skank?
coming for. You got to give that nickname Skank.
That's right. That's true. Well, so I have two picks, two weird picks. I thought because lean in a little bit of the comedy element, how far you want to go, and that kind of depends on who you pick. But my first one is, I'm gonna butcher his last name, so I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. But it's you'd recognize his face. I just see him in everything. But Jason Mantzoukas.
Oh yeah, Jason Mantzoukas, very funny.
Yeah.
That's actually not
Yeah.
a bad choice at all. Actually, I could see Jason Mantzoukas doing a good job there. He's a little big, but that's not such. I think he could bring it down.
That's what I mean. It depends on kind of like where you're gonna go. It's like how much comedy do you want? But I thought, well, that's an interesting pick.
I did agree, though. Obviously, we both know this is sort of a comic character. My first choice was Seth Rogen.
Oh, you know what? That's not bad. I don't know if Seth Rogen's doing that sort of stuff in this point of his career, but that's not bad.
I mean, he's older now, which I think leads well to the character. And I think, I don't think he'd be as broad, but he'd still have his little laugh that he does. So it's a comedy beat.
Yeah. Well, somewhat along that line, my second pick was Walton Goggins.
Oh, Walton Goggins. I love Walton Goggins. I mean, a darker portrayal probably, but I like the idea.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting that I think you and I are hitting somewhere around the same point. It's just how far do you want to go in one direction or another, right?
Yeah. I mean, this will be the third remake of Forever Night, basically.
That's right.
So I don't see why we don't bring John Kaplis back. So he's my second pick.
John Kaplis playing an older version of his character, huh?
Yeah, he's still a detective. He never aged up.
I mean, there's something funny about that. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm not sure. All of these are interesting choices that I think any of them could work actually.
Yeah,
But I think we need to look at the rest of the cast and cast around that, because we've really set up kind of a pretty A-list cast at this point.
Well, what is the relationship we're kind of be pushing a little bit with Nick? Is this going to be a bit of an older detective? Is this going to be more of a peer? Is this going to be like, because that I'm Jimmy two times the guy who's playing our lead here. I'm assuming he's in his 20s, right? This guy Elvis boy.
Yeah, he'll be quite young, but you have to remember he's young, but he's quite old mentally, right? So we kind of maybe need to offset that by having a detective who maybe thinks he knows more, but is actually like Skanky himself is maybe not that like qualified to be doing the job.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. And I don't know. I kind of like Seth Rogen. I think it's interesting.
It would be interesting. I like his look these days. He's grayed out a lot, so it might be an interesting like case. And I think you're right. He has a little more range maybe than some of the other characters. So maybe he couldn't he doesn't have to play Skanky as over the top.
Yeah. Let's go with Seth Rogen. I think it's a really interesting pick.
Yeah, I think it could be interesting for sure. I mean, especially in this prestige blockbuster with Avatar level effects.
Okay.
Toronto's never looked so good. It's
we're
all
still in
CG
Toronto.
though. We're not shooting here. We're shooting in Atlanta, but it's all going to be on a parking lot green screen.
Well, we get that above the line tax credit, right?
Exactly.
And I have two directors, and they're in two very different styles. So this is going to be what kind of movie you want, Luke. But I'll give you my first pick.
All right.
And again, Oscar-nominated Oscar-nominated director, Todd Field.
Todd Field. I just saw Tar, so that's an interesting choice.
Yeah. It's going to be a very different, but what I was thinking is a very really leading in the sort of like atmosphere of this show, the actual TV show we're watching, which we will talk about, I promise you, they're kind of going for at times,
Yeah. I went a similar direction. I guess we have Oscar fever over here during the ceremony, Jordan, because
We
I
do have
also
Oscar
went
fever.
with I believe an Oscar winner anyway. And my thought was like, this is more sweeping drama, like big emotions kind of thing. But I went with Jane Campion of Power of the Dog director.
That's also a good pick. You know what's funny? I have to say, I quite like that. I quite like that pick. I like it better than Todd Field. I went for something, a real Hail Mary for my second pick, and I think you'll get a chuckle out of this. But hear me out. He needs a little bit of money, and he's promising he'll keep it on budget. He's a little bit older, but he kind of needs the gig. And it's good for our poster. Francis Ford Coppola is coming out for it.
Is he going to survive the movie he's currently working on?
I
That's the
know.
question.
Well, he needs to finance that. The movie's going to go down. He's going to make this movie to make some money.
He'll
so
make
he can
this in
finish-
between so he can go back
Yeah.
and finish the other one.
Yeah, that's right.
That's some good leverage. I like the leverage we'd have over him. I do like that.
Yeah. You want to get that money? You better finish this.
Well, my second pick, I went a little bit different. Like, I did prestige drama, and then I was like, well, maybe we can get like a prestige, maybe a little more in the thriller angle, take that side of the vampire thing. So I went with director, I believe, just not winning Oscar, but nominated for an Oscar, Emerald Fennell, who directed Promising Young Woman.
Interesting. I still think I have to say Jane Campion is just such a fun pick. I think it's so out there. I think that would be my pick. I think that's too good.
I think it's good. I think this show's all about emotions, and it'll be big emotions from her. Everything's going to be bigger than life emotion.
It's a lot of sweeping shots of Elvis staring off, thinking about his life. You know, his hair is
Oh, yeah,
blown in
yeah.
the wind.
He's looking out across Lake Ontario.
That's actually Lake Atlanta. What do they have in Atlanta? Is there a lake there?
No, it'll all be CG. Don't worry about it.
That's what I mean. Do they? It's all CG. I thought they would just replace a lake.
No.
I don't know my Atlanta geography.
We just set up a parking lot with a green screen and we shoot it all there.
Yeah, I mean it's affordable. So let's do a rundown of this marvelous piece of cinema we put together.
Forever Night, the movie. That's what the poster
movie.
says.
Forever Night, the movie with the exclamation mark.
Yeah. Nick Knight is Austin Butler, fresh off his Oscar win as Elvis.
Yeah,
We're really committing to that right now. He's definitely winning the Oscar.
I love it.
There's Dr. Natalie Lambert, Olivia Cook.
Up and coming. You don't remember, but you know,
I don't know
she
who
might
she
be winning
is.
an Oscar.
But she's in the new Game of Thrones, so she's got to be somebody. Then we've got LaCroix, played by Michael Shannon, who's just doing a great job. You know, he's chewing up those scenes.
Another Oscar-nominated actor. I can't remember if he won, but I know he's been nominated.
You remember when he played Zod? You remember his he's got that like facial hair that makes him look exactly like Bam Margera from Jackass.
I really like Michael Shannon. I like him in everything.
Then we've got Jeanette, and I believe we've got Marion Cotillard playing her.
Yeah, and you just be looking at her lovely eyes the whole time.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. I like that for her. She just gets to character act it. She's in the club. She's just like a person for Nick to go talk to. She doesn't have to like do a lot. She just has to like chew the scenery too. And I think she'd do a good job.
Yeah, and then we got his partner.
Detective Don Skanke. I like this. I can totally see Seth Rogen washing a car. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and he's a little bit older, but in reality, he's actually quite a bit younger than Nick. Give you this weird dynamic. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's good. He's showing Nick the ropes, but Nick knows all the ropes.
Yeah, he's had many careers, and I think he's even has like a hilarious Trotsky facial hair on his driver's license.
And actually, I like it too because when we bring Jane Campion in to direct, she'll really tie it all together. She's going to bring these elements. Seth Rogen's going to be elevated. He's going to win an Oscar for this. Seth Rogen's going to win his first Oscar because of this movie.
I think so.
It's great. I can't wait to go to next year's ceremony.
Yeah, I mean, we've done a great job. If you don't want to see this movie, I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
I know, right? Well, that was fun, Jordan.
That was, but unfortunately, we have to talk about the actual show now.
I know, Jordan. I know this has been a real slog for you.
Yeah, and I have to say, I feel bad because I understand what it is that people like about this show, and I get that there's a very big fan base. There's a lot of just people still talk about the show. Like I see there's people doing fan fiction that's like recent. Like people like the show. I just think the execution of the show it doesn't warrant the people's response to it. I think these people who love it could be asking for a much better show.
Well, Jordan, I think you've made your point, and I think your case is fair. I think it's been fair the whole time. I've obviously felt a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But I think there's just one more voice we need to hear from before we make a final judgment on this.
Yeah.
Jordan. Jordan. Hi, I'm Detective Don Skanky from the show Forever Night, also known as John Kapelos, actor extraordinaire. I understand from a little birdie. No, let me rephrase that. I understand from Luke that you like to watch Forever Night, that it's perhaps one of your favorite shows, and yes, that I play Don Skanky, and that may be one of your favorite characters. But I also understand, Jordan, that you have a problem with some of the pedantic plots. Okay. All right. So there may be inconsistencies in what Knight likes to drink or what he does from episode to episode or season to season. But those are just sort of minor little flaws, minor little things that happen in a TV show when it goes from one writer to another or from one producer to another and they don't really care what the other one does or thinks. And that often happens in network TV, or in this case, late night, crime time after prime time TV is on CBS. But I think as a fan, as a real fan, you should be willing to overlook those small inconsistencies and go right to the heart of the matter, which is the wonderful, I was robbed by the Emmy people, performance by certain actors. And also the fact that it was a cutting edge before its time thing, before like Buffy and all that other stuff, Twilight and all that other stuff. So Jordan, we have to look at this in terms of television history and what this show actually contributed to those, such as yourself, who are coming to it rather lately in their lives, perhaps, or in the life of the show, and realizing what a gem this show is. So put down your pedantic plot criticizing weapon and look at the show with straight, beautiful eyes and realize that you, a tea snob, a person who loves the finer points of chamomile and black tea and jasmine tea, should know better. So Jordan, from one tea lover to another, and from one Forever Night aficionado to the other, carry on and realize that your best friend, or at least he considered you his best friend, wants you to know that the plots are not pedantic. They're inspired, they're original, they're creative, they're inconsistent, but they're also brilliant, not unlike a flawed diamond. Take care. Bye-bye.
There you go, Jordan.
Man, oh,
a new
man.
voice to bring you to the last episode of Forever Night.
Well, I mean that was, I have to say, what a impressive amount of material Mr. Kapelos did there for us. That's lovely.
I must say, it was very fun. The listener, he's on Cameo now. I found out while we were doing this show. I got a little cameo done up there. I highly recommend you get one from him. He's very funny.
Yeah, that was really good. That's funny. You know what? It's almost turned me around on the show.
Has he changed your mind?
It's almost turned me around on the show just on how great that was.
I reached out to past guest's wife, Jane, Steve's wife, Jane, and I said she should get him one where she tells him about the time he accosted him at an airport.
That is funny. That would be. I'd like to see that too.
I would also love to see that.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for doing that. That's very funny.
All right, Jordan, let's get into it. Let's get into the final episode.
Well, let me just say, what a bummer that John Kapelos isn't in this. As we kind of mentioned at the beginning of this episode, he's dead. The character's dead.
Yeah, I will say, had we started season 3 and not skipped it, and I got into the first episode and realized John Kapelos was no longer in the show, that might have been too much. I don't know how I would have felt about the show after that.
Yeah, okay, we'll talk about it and we'll go through it, but like he has a new partner, and I went and I looked at a little bit of the character, so if you want to know about it, Luke, I can tell you a little bit about Detective Tracy, but like I don't know. I just don't think she's pulling the same weight as old Mr. Kapelos.
I mean, Skanky and LaCroix are key parts of what I was enjoying about the show, so I was sad to see him gone for sure.
Yeah.
All right, here's the IMDb summary for Season 3, Episode 22, Last Night. In the final episode, Nick makes the agonizing choice between life as he knows it or true love.
I saw that just before we started recording. Is that what it is?
I don't
is
know.
It
I
true
think
love?
it's a pretty generous explanation for the show. Maybe because we haven't seen all the episodes, it hasn't quite clicked for us. But I guess that's the idea.
I guess that's the idea. I'll mention a couple quick things just to get us started. One, the episode is directed by Geraint Wyn Davies. Is that how you pronounce his name?
I know, crazy, right? That
Yeah.
I mean, to get the final episode of your own show and then also direct it.
Yeah, that's one. It's interesting. And the second thing I wanted to mention, I think this is at least our third time we started an episode with someone in a bath, and like that's a lot. That's a lot for a show, right? For the amount of episodes.
Prime
we've
time
seen?
after prime time, my friend. You're in the bath.
I suppose that's true. Yeah.
It is interesting. It does open with this woman in the bath, and she's slitting her wrists in a very dark scene.
It was actually, I was watching it thinking, I don't know if this is a fair thing to say, but it almost seemed, I know that we're in an age of like golden age of television and everything's kind of gritty and realistic and stuff, but I don't know if you would show this on TV, would you? Like, it's literally the woman cutting her wrists.
It is effective. Like, I gotta give this to
I agree.
Geraint. It's a very effective scene, and it's sort of accompanied by a monologue by LaCroix, which will keep happening throughout the episode. We'll keep going back to him monologuing, which is a precursor to the final scene. But in this opening, he sort of monologues about suicide and depression, and it is just like you're coming in, you're like, whoa, we're in for a heavy final episode.
Yeah. And every time he's sort of like waxing poetically, as you said, it's shot in sort of there's this like early 90s effect of like, I'm not exactly sure how they did it, but it almost looked like there's a water screen in front of the person. Like there's a very like wavy sort of
It's very
effect
hazy.
Yeah. And I have to say, it's my least favorite thing of this show is you can just ignore. I understand how it ties in him, like sort of like his like poetry he's saying and stuff. Like it really doesn't add anything to the episode. I didn't think it just felt like filler on an episode that, let's be fair, is also in some ways a kind of a clip show. And you're like, how many different elements of filler do you need on an episode? This is not a plot-based episode.
It's a very light episode for sure.
Yeah.
If anything, it's more of a denouement than a climax.
I would agree. with that. Yeah, it's almost like you finished your book and you're like, and what happened at the very end? You're like, yeah, here's what happened, you know?
Yeah, we'll keep coming back to him, and I won't keep talking about it, but he comes back to him a few times, and he'll monologue for a very decent amount of time, first about suicide and depression, then about the perils of love, and I believe he gives another monologue about guilt midway through.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's performed, like, my criticism is not how it's performed, like, it's done very, like, sort of Shakespearean and sort of big, and I just didn't think it added anything. Like, if you took it out of the episode, I don't think you'd miss it.
No, it is more of a tonal piece. To an finale that in its own ways is very odd. So I have a hard time being like, is it wrong? I'm like, I would say in a typical structure it'd be wrong, but in this episode, I can't say one way or the other. Like it's very emotionally driven. I think his suicide and depression monologue is actually pretty, like, it's a good monologue. It's just so strange.
And let me just say this as we're getting into this. We've watched several episodes of this show. Obviously, we didn't watch season 3. This seems a far cry from the first episode, doesn't it? Like that sort of, it's going to be an episode every week where Nick's going to try to find some sort of relic or some sort of item that might give him, cure him and make him human again. That seemed to be what the show was going to kind of be with this B plot of, or at least that would always be the B plot, where there might be like a police case or something like that, or someone's discovered his identity or something like that. But that's not what this is at all. Like this is to say it's somber is to put it mildly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to give it a pass in that it's a final episode, so I think they're stepping way outside of the format. But to be fair, too, I think by the time we got to the second season, that whole, like, how's Nick going to cure himself had kind of sidelined anyway. I think that had minimized plot-wise, and it had become sort of half detective show and half, like, melodrama, basically. Like, soap opera melodrama. And this one in particular, I mean, certainly leans heavy into the melodrama, but, like, I think it's just, like, distinctly different from probably anything else in the series.
But I think you're right. I think that's a good way to describe it. Like, it's all melodrama all the time. Like, this is just, like, it's drapes blowing with candles and people staring at each other and like just there's like one scene where Natalie and Nick are talking, and it just keeps dissolving to one another's face back and forward. It's so over the top to the point where it's almost like it's almost a parody of itself. It's like just towing that line.
Yeah, it's there's a long sequence where they're having a conversation, and they make a real directorial choice too. Like there's the dissolving between them, but also the camera's always panning over their faces. Like
Yes.
just the camera's always moving at all times. It's like a very like static conversation where the camera's just flying around, and it is bewildering at times.
Yeah, I'd agree.
But what it is this woman who's killed herself in the bath. It turns out she is a friend of Dr. Nat's. They're both doctors, apparently, and they used to be closer friends. They used to get together and commiserate about their lives and their careers until Nat at some point realized that just like their commiserating was actually making it worse. It was like really pointing out the like pieces that were missing, the love that was missing from their lives. And so they stopped hanging out and they drifted apart. But now that she's killed herself, she's actually written like a 10 reasons why note directly to Nat about her suicide and left her journal to Nat. And so Nat for this episode is becoming quite depressed herself, discussing suicide openly and kind of worrying about sort of having this like loveless life. And it's very strange because the conversation with Nick, and the conversation is about like, are Nick and her ever going to, I guess, like
Consummate in some way.
Consummate their love? Like, is it going to be real? And that truly threatens suicide if he doesn't do it. And I was just like, this is a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting because this other doctor, I think it's Dr. Laura Haynes, this sort of, it's a very, how do you say this sensitively? It's a very powerful thing to have written a suicide note directly to one person and then not quite blaming her, but
warning her. It's more of a warning.
A warning, and then giving her this, this diary and all this. It's a lot to put on someone, irrespective of suicide and someone's mental challenges and that sort of thing. Not to be insensitive to that, but Natalie takes it to the point of like, yes, I guess I have kind of wasted my life, and it's now or never. And I'll give this to the show. This is not the first time we've seen this. I think it was either last episode or a couple episodes ago where it was the same sort of thing when they thought it was the end of the world. And she was just like, I am making my choice now. Like, she doesn't seem to hesitate too much. She's sort of like goes for what she thinks is the most drastic of the options. It seems to be the first thing she does.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is here, and I guess this has been there. I think we've seen hints of it, is she loves Nick, and I think we're supposed to sense that it's a love that's not like just a basic like puppy love. It's more like she feels it's like something deep and strong, and Nick I think reciprocates in some way. It's like some sort of like, I don't know, like true love, soulmate kind of thing. Like I think because of the vampire show, everything's heightened, right? So whatever they have is beyond that. And she's basically telling Nick, it's just like, you have to commit to whatever we have here by either turning me into a vampire or doing something, or we need to call it off now and I need to kill myself immediately. And I'm just like, Nat, there's some in between here, I would hope.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing you mentioned, the sort of love between these two, because I think we've always seen there's been clearly a very close connection in friendship, and there's this familial love. And we did see it the last episode where they sort of were hinting around this like a bit of a will they won't they that I hadn't seen before, and they're really leaning into it in this. But again, maybe it was more in episodes we didn't see, but it does feel like they're pushing into something that at least wasn't on the forefront of the show, right? That like there's this unresolved love between these two, or there's this longing that hasn't been reciprocated in some way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to give it a pass just in that we haven't seen all of them. It's to be like, maybe this was in there somewhere. I think maybe the thing that was the most like startling to me was Nat's like very, very firm ultimatum with some pretty dire consequences, where it's like, I don't know if this is how you win someone's heart.
Yeah, I know. And it's a little bit of like, hey, here's the deal. Like, are you going to love me or I'm going to kill myself? It's like, ooh, I don't know if this is a healthy relationship.
I mean, it's not winning me over. I'm not loving you more right now.
Yeah. But what I like though is when she, I think the first thing she does is she sort of tells Nick, and the first thing you have is like, Nick's just like, oh yeah, that's happened to me too. I've had a friend that died. And it just sort of like made it all about himself. And then he has like this doll from the person in this flashback. I'm like, what, it's not about you. Shouldn't you be helping your friend?
Yeah, it is interesting because they like show the flashback to him and a friend who killed themselves and how that affected him, and then they show a flashback to a time that Nick was also suicidal. I'm just like, this is a episode that's really heavy right now. Like, this should have a content warning on it.
But and I should say it doesn't get any lighter. Like, that's just what this episode is.
Honestly, probably one of the lightest moments is they show the flashback to the time that Nick and Nat first met, and at least that was a very funny scene to me.
Yeah, so what they show is there's a person, I think, Luke, you correct me on the details, but there was some sort of robbery or attack or something, and Nick, not being anyone that anyone knows, was a bystander and sort of threw himself in the way of the attack, got, I think, a bomb of some sort hit him through this attack.
He tried to intervene on a robbery, and they say,
Right.
and he got a pipe bomb for his troubles.
Yeah, so, and they say, like, the guy brings in the body bag is like to Natalie, who's the coroner, just, you know, this is gonna be really bad. He just got blown up, so it's gonna look really bad. When she zips down the zipper and looks at him, he only has some minor injuries, and she's like, why is this guy kind of freaking out? And what you realize is he has apparently like Wolverine abilities to heal real quick. And then what I like is it's something I didn't really realize before, but every time he becomes a vampire, and I assume it has to do with the contacts and the teeth prosthetics, he really has to overdo it. So all his movements are just so big, and he's like all the time. So it's like he suddenly sits up, he's a vampire, and that's like how they're first meeting, that she realizes he's a vampire. That's why he's not dead. But what made me laugh is there's so many questions I had after that. I'm like, wait, so she met him as a vampire. What, then they became friends, and then she was like, you should join the police academy, and then he did join the police academy, and then they were friends at the same precinct?
Yeah, many questions. It opened more things than it closed, for sure.
Like, it could have just been they met the first day at work and they're both cops, you know? And then something happened and she accidentally found out who he was. It's like, why did he have to be not a police officer? It makes it way more complicated.
She met him as a corpse. It's totally fine.
It's like, okay.
I did like the VFX of the huge gash on his face, like, closing.
Yeah. It was good.
Also, and this is, like, very funny to me, and it's, like, a great little beat, but she's left in the coroner's office with his body, and then Nick sits up, like, full vampire style, and they cut to Nat, and she's on the phone, and she turns around and sees him sitting up, and her reaction is, what the?
Is that what she says?
She's just all like, what the? She doesn't even finish the sentence. I was like, oh, okie dokie. That's how I would react if I saw a vampire.
I said this before. I don't think she's a bad actress. I haven't seen her in something else, other things. I know she's been in other things. I feel bad because I think there's nothing for her to do, and it just feels like the character is sort of one note and blah all the time, just because they don't know what to do with her. And even in this episode, there's a little bit to do, but I think over 3 years she's so ill-defined that I think that's my problem, perhaps with the love story between these two, because it's like, well, what do they love about each other? Because Nick is so broody, boring as a vampire, and it's not like there's nothing terribly evocative about him, and she's so plain Jane because she doesn't have a chance to develop a character. So it's like, I don't even know if I buy them in love because I don't know anything about him after all this time.
I think it's maybe the Twilight problem in that you kind of have two blandish characters, and I mean, in Twilight, the thing was the female character was so empty as a vessel, so that you could pour yourself into that character. That was I think people thought was probably the attraction, is you could just put yourself in that character because they lacked any specific characterization, so they could just be you. Obviously, I don't think either of those things are necessarily planned ideas, but maybe that's a little bit what, for better or worse, maybe trying to happen here. I don't know.
You're right, but it might be just be to be fair to the show, and I don't know if it's true or not, but maybe it is what they were kind of going for. It's like a trope, as you said, like that's just what this genre is, and maybe it's like, yeah, the vampire is broody, and the reason he's broody is because there's something kind of romantic about it, and she's just kind of like, in some cases, a damsel in distress, and that's all we need her to be, so we don't need to add more to it. That's not what the character is. Maybe it's just as simple as that.
I do agree, though. I think as a result of, the few episodes you've watched, let's be fair, I haven't watched a lot of this, I haven't gotten much of a sense of Natalie. She just is pretty empty in the episodes we've seen, so it's been tough to like really wrap my head around her as well.
Yeah, but there's apparently a love between the two that is a true love, and it's a love that must become something, or she's killing herself.
She's blowing those brains right out.
Yeah. Okay.
She's like 31. She's going to give up on the rest of her life over it.
Yeah, and I just think it's so funny. This is the second time she's threatened this over the show.
But as I said, we're skipped all of season 3, and there's all these new characters. So we do get to meet his new partner, Detective Tracy Vetter, and a new captain, Joe Reese. And I was just like, can't wait to spend 30 seconds with them before the end of it.
Yeah. Now, I didn't learn anything about Detective Reese, or Captain Reese, excuse me, which is a shame. But I did learn the back story on Detective Tracy Vetter is that her dad is high up in the police department. So thus, she's also always charged with nepotism. And so because of that, she's always getting herself kind of in hot water because she's always trying to prove herself that she's earned her place. Thus, it becomes a thing between her and Nick, where Nick's sort of always having to get her out of situations because she's put herself in places where she's not quite ready because she's trying to prove herself. That's kind of what her backstory is. Now, in this episode, do you get that at all? Not really. And we get rid of her real quick.
Classic Nepo, baby.
Yeah, I guess.
I also agree. I was sad. Well, obviously, we didn't spend any time with Captain Joe Reese. He seemed like a very interesting character. As soon as he came on, he like commanded the screen, and I was just like, oh, let's spend some time with this guy.
And it's like, no, I think he gets 2 scenes in this episode.
But, you'll never guess what happens at the police precinct, Jordan. There's a hostage taken.
I know. It's so funny, this show. It's like, you think it's like a choose your own adventure. There's only 3 options they have, and it's like another hostage situation in the police department. And what's funny about it, again, is that we're speed watching this show, so we're not watching all the episodes. So you know how much repeat there is because we're seeing things repeated on the few episodes we've watched.
Well, the thing here is they just really need a quick way of like doing something violent. So they just kind of have a guy, I guess he's being transported between either prisons or cells or something. He's being transported through. The cops watching him are not very good. He breaks free, grabs one of their guns, and there's a bit of a standoff in the precinct. He briefly has a hostage, but he does leave the hostage behind and ends up like, I guess, barricading himself inside of the locker room, for better or worse. And it's at this point that Nick gets a phone call, which is the only thing that gets him out of that awkward conversation with Natalie. Like, literally a phone call comes in, he's just like, hey, Natalie, I know you said you were going to kill yourself, but I got to go. Something's happening at the police station.
Yeah, I got to go to work. They need me because I'm the best negotiator they have, as per the last episode where he did no negotiating.
I did think that as well. I'm like, Nick's not the guy you call in to negotiate, but okie dokie.
Yeah.
And Nick, I guess he has a relationship with this convict, Dawkins, I believe his name is, because he's like, Dawkins, I know I locked you up, but I came here to talk to you.
I like that because it didn't amount to anything. Like, because I think what the episode wanted was that he has a history with the guy, so thus he knows him. But he seemed like sort of a normal kind of petty criminal. It's not like this is someone who, I don't know, they had this long, tete-a-tete with. He's like this gangster boss that he finally brought down or something, and so he knows his every move. It's not like that. It's like, oh, he's some guy I arrested once. I was like, okay, why are you negotiating with him?
Well, and Dawkins' whole thing is he just doesn't want to go back to jail. Like, he's basically trying to suicide by cop, essentially. That's what Dawkins is really up to. So it's also just like, I don't know, don't send the guy who arrested him in. Like, I think that's why he's upset.
Yeah. So what he does, he goes in and he starts chasing the guy through, or trying to find him through the it's the like dark hallways of the police department because he's pulled the power. And he eventually does get to him, and it was directed in a weird way. And I'm just gonna kind of go through it quick, but like the kind of a scuffle happens and the guy started like shoots. And Luke, am I wrong? What I think he does is he shoots Nick, but the bullets go through Nick and hit Tracy. That's what happened, right?
I think it's something like that, because what Nick finds him and he starts to glamour him. Basically, he's just like, put down your gun. Right. I've got the glamour powers. But Nick doesn't know his partner Tracy has also snuck into the locker room. And Tracy Vetter, she picks the absolute worst time to pop out. But basically, as he's glamoring this man to put down the gun, she just pops out of nowhere with her gun pulled on him, and it essentially scares the bad guy. The bad guy gets freaked out, ruins the glamour, and he just opens fire. And I think he shoots Nick a few times, and Nick turns vampire. Like, he gets hit and he goes vampire mode. And now his partner's seen him as a vampire, and this criminal's seen him as a vampire. And so when Nick goes at him, he just starts firing even more wildly. And I think you're right. Like, somewhere in this wildfire of bullets, Tracy gets hit in the chest, basically. And then Nick picks up Dawkins. And, a thing, it's tough on this show. It doesn't have a huge fight budget. He sort of, like, tosses him against the wall. And then, like, a scene later, like, well, you killed him. I'm like, what? You killed him?
Yeah, and it's like, if you're going to kill him, he should have... I actually thought it should be a moment where Nick sort of lost control. You know what I mean? It's that push and pull between his human nature and his vampire nature. Maybe he just grabbed the guy and like, broke his neck with his hand or something, showing the power he has at all times. And he felt bad about that. But again, it was like, yeah, he tossed him like a sack of potatoes. It's like, oh, okay, I guess you could die that way.
Yeah. And then we kind of he runs over to his partner who's like going unconscious. And I think she has a meaningful line where she's like, you should have told me. I'm like, okay, cool. That's the last thing you're going to say as you die and you saw your partner turn into a vampire. It's like, you could have told me you were a vampire. I'm cool with vampires.
I'd have been like, I may be negative. Make sure I get the right blood.
And then, I mean, it's funny. It's funny. I thought she was dead, but then we cut and she's like, oh, she's at the hospital. She's in intensive care. She might make it still. And I'm like, oh, okay. So they're not actually going to kill her. But that is just there so that Captain Reese can come by and tell us, Jordan and I specifically, that both Skanky and Amanda Cohen are dead.
Yeah.
In the purpose of the show, though, it's to remind Nick of all the death that's been left behind by him in this world. He blames himself a little bit for the death of Skanky and I guess the death of Amanda Cohen, but it's why she's in intensive care. And I thought she was going to recover, but like I think what happens is Nick goes off, he does a couple other scenes, and then immediately afterwards, like, oh, she died, by the way. I'm just like, geez, everybody's going to die in this episode.
Yeah. And let me just say, don't you think it would have been more interesting to the show? And perhaps I'll give the caveat of maybe this is not fair, but don't you think it would have been interesting if over the course of the 3 years, Nick became darker because the people around him were always dying and it kind of changed him as a person? Maybe at the beginning he was kind of hopeful and he thought he was going to be able to change, but now he realizes just by default of being around him, he has this sort of like cancerous aspect where people just die, and it's like it would have been nice to have seen that change in him, how hard he's taking it and how bad he feels about his sort of missed opportunities in life. But because he's always kind of been this brooding sort of like all the time, I just don't know if it lands as hard as it could,
I mean, I think the problem is, this is pre-serialization by a pretty big margin, so they're not going to build in a season arcing plot that way. I think they're aiming for that. Like, I think that's the intent of this episode is Nick is dealing with, like, he's becoming more aware of sort of the trauma around him, just of being this like undead thing. But because there's no time, like, there's really no chance to like really let it marinate or like give the audience a chance. I think that's maybe the premise here, but you're right. It's you have to do it so fast and so quick that just like so much is happening. It's so jarring, right?
You're right, and they just have to keep killing characters because now we know the captain's dead, Skanky's dead, and now this Tracy we've just met. Obviously, you would have met her earlier in the season, but this Detective Tracy's dead too. There's 3. There
is one more great element though. When she's in the hospital, like potentially dying, and Nick goes to visit her. He stands over and he's thinking about Skanky's helicopter explosion and like really regretting it. And he's just like turns into a vampire and he sort of hovers over her like he might, he's like thinking, he's like, do I save her by turning into a vampire? And as he's like vampire face over top of her, Dr. Nat walks in the room at that exact moment. And it's so funny because it's like,
she's like, come on.
It's like you're caught with your pants down. It's like, it's just like, uh-oh.
Well, it is funny.
Nat.
The last conversation was her being like, turn me into a vampire. Let's just have this love that we couldn't have as a human vampire. We'll both be vampires. We'll be in love. And he's like, I just don't think I could do that. She's like, well, I'm going to kill myself if you don't do it. That's how serious I am. And he's like, hold that thought. Then he goes to the hospital and he's like, maybe I should turn this other woman to a vampire. It's just like, oh, Nick, no.
I know. I laughed so hard. It's so funny seeing her open the door. Like that sort of caught in the moment thing. Yeah. It was just, I loved it. It made me laugh so hard.
It is funny though, because take it yourself out. Why was it so easy for him to have that consideration? Because the guilt that he did it? Was that what the difference between turning Natalie and turning Tracy? Because you're sentencing the person to the same sort of fate, right?
And the thing is, I understand Nick is sorry. He's mourning the loss of these people in his life, but he's pretty indirectly responsible, if not responsible at all, for any of those deaths.
Yeah. Well, it's like, well, Skanky died because he was a cop. It's like, well, yeah, you were a cop too, but you didn't. Like, unless you bought him the plane ticket and told him to make sure to be on because you're putting a bomb on, it's like, you didn't do it.
Yeah, will you hold this bomb for me while you take this flight?
Yeah, I just got to tie my shoes real quick.
But that's sort of what happens with old Vetter. She's dead. That's another dead person in the show. Nick then goes to visit LaCroix at the Raven, where I don't know if you noticed, as he comes into the Raven, I guess they found that bust he broke of himself as General Lucius and put it behind the bar.
Oh, and so just so you know, Jeanette, who's gone, I don't think she's dead, but she's gone off the show too at this point. And I looked it up. LaCroix took over the bar, so he runs the Raven now.
I got the sense of that because there's a flashback
Yeah.
where she says she's leaving, and then Lacroix was hanging out there, so I guess now he's got 2 jobs: DJ Nightcrawler and running the Raven.
Yeah, and I think, and people who like Forever Night, because I started skimming through to try to catch up. I think she came back for one episode and she's human, and there's a whole thing of like, how did she become human? It's what Nick wants. And I do like the idea though that she left and she did very quickly the thing that he's been trying for hundreds of years. She's like, oh yeah, I became human last week.
Well, we'll get to that because that's a big part of this episode
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
But I love he goes in, he sees Lacroix, and he meets him. Lacroix's just there packing up. He's like, "Yeah, I'm getting out of town. I don't know why, but I'll see you later."
Well, no, he basically says like, I feel like we've been here too long. Like we go to places and there's like a finite amount of time we should be here, and it just feels like it's time to go. Anything we could have done here, it's like, I don't exactly know what it specifically he was looking for, but he's just like, it's just time to go, and I think you should come with me because there's nothing left for us here. Let's go somewhere. Let's do our dance again, whether we're friends or we're enemies. Let's go do it somewhere else. Let's go restart our life.
That's what I mean. I think is the purpose for him leaving is more to do with Nick's character.
Yeah.
He basically has to give Nick the idea. It's just like, I can see that your life is in turmoil right now. It's time for you to move on. Like, we're at that point where you need to take a clean break. It's not healthy for you here anymore, which is nice. It's actually kind of a nice scene. LaCroix always does a nice job in his scenes, and it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of like, it's a final episode. I doubt the episodes before this were about LaCroix like looking for houses in Miami or something. Like, I'm sure this is a very sudden like, I'm moving.
Yeah, he's packed his bags before he's bought new property. Maybe put his resume in another radio station, in Atlanta.
Exactly. He's going to pick up a new DJ job somewhere. I did like, though, they kind of do a few flashbacks here, which is nice for us because obviously we missed a lot of episodes. But in these flashbacks, they're using the opportunity to remind the audience and for us kind of show us a little bit more about like the relationship between Nick and LaCroix. Like,
Yeah.
I think there's like a scene where LaCroix watches Nick try to turn a woman he was in love with before, and he accidentally kills her and tries to help her get over that grief, and then shows Nick stopping LaCroix from trying to turn a human into a vampire because of their love. Like, you kind of get the sense that there is more of a friendship there. Like, that enemies thing probably has dissipated over 2 seasons and become more of a complicated friendship.
I think so. And I think it's a better relationship and a more interesting, more nuanced relationship for the show, of this sort of like, they have that connection they've talked about. Like, they can't get away from it. And even if they see things differently, there is this pull towards each other. And I think that's more interesting than just like, he's your villain that shows up every now and then.
Well, and I think that was maybe a smart move they did in the second season, but probably something they shouldn't have done in the first. Like, if LaCroix had been alive all the first season, you probably could have spent more time doing that. And I mean, clearly they revamped and retconned in season 2 and 3 to kind of bring them together. I think I always thought there was a misstep in the premiere was to kill him. So clearly they've spent some time retconning that.
Right.
So.
Right.
I'm going to mention it now because it doesn't really come up. It doesn't really matter. But we're talking about flashbacks anyway. There is a moment in this episode where they do a flashback where Nick is hanging out with Joan of Arc.
Yeah. Now, I wasn't sure. I don't know if he said her by name, but I was like, is that supposed to be Joan of Arc? Is that what's happening?
Oh, 100% supposed to be Joan of
Yeah,
Arc.
okay.
And it has more to do with the idea of faith, which comes up later in the episode. Like, that's a topic that gets brought up. But it was just very funny. It's like, cutaway. It's like, remember that time I hung out with Joan of Arc? I'm like, what is this, a Family Guy episode?
Yeah, I've said it before. I just hate that. I just hate these things where they've been around for a long time, so they bet famous historical figures. It's just so dumb.
You know what I like, though, Jordan?
What's that?
Joan of Arc is also that traffic cop who gave Skanky a ticket.
Is she?
Yeah, same actress.
Oh, that's good. You know what? They should have done this show where like, why does she look exactly the same? But they're like, there's no reason. Just like that model.
There's only so many actors in Toronto. What are you going to do?
That's right. That's right.
Anyway, it's at this point that Nick goes home to find Dr. Nat waiting for him so they can continue that awkward conversation they were having. And as you alluded to earlier, this is when there's this big reveal that obviously Jeanette has left the show at some point. But not only did she leave the show, she found a way to become mortal. So sometime in either season 2 or season 3, she cracked the code, the thing Nick's always been looking for, and she became human.
Yeah. It's like, great. Good for Jeanette. I'm happy for her.
And then they're like, they reveal how she did it, and I laughed and laughed. It's like, to become mortal.
Oh, did they? I missed it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it comes up exactly. There's like, to become mortal, you need to make love by taking tiny little sips of blood. Just tiny little sips. Every time, just make love and take a tiny little sip of blood. And she did that enough times with, I guess, a character who was her love, a mortal love she met. And that's how she eventually became mortal, was just like making love, taking tiny sips of blood.
Good for Jeanette.
Absolutely. She really worked it out. So Nat basically is just like, if you're not going to make me a vampire, can we at least make you mortal? Like, we know how it works. We've done it before. And she kind of like looks at him and, it's a very romantic, softly lit thing. She's like, make love to me, Nick. And Nick's like, you know what? She's right. Like, I put it off too long. And he's reluctant, but he goes in and he goes in for that like little nibble. She's like, come in, make love to me, take a tiny little sip. And Nick proceeds to drain all of her blood. He drinks all. I was like, Nick, that's too much. Nick, stop. That's too much blood.
Yeah, he drains it all. And I don't know, and maybe you disagree, but it seemed like there was a moment, and I don't know if it was supposed to be that she's in sort of this throw of ecstasy, but I thought there was a moment the actress did this sort of regret. Like there was a moment where she was like, oh no, maybe this is not what I should be doing. That's what I thought on her face she was doing. Maybe I'm reading into it, but I thought there was... It's interesting if that's the case of this is what I want. I finally got it. And then as it's happening, she goes, oh no, I see the reality of the situation as he can't help himself really is what it is.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I think we've seen this of Nick before is that he just has no self-control, this man. And we're seeing it happen here again. Like it was a pretty simple ask. Let's like do little sips. And you went all in, you did a big chug.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what has happened is before he sort of has done this to, Nat, the conversation is kind of like there's three options essentially for them that Nat lays out. And one, make me a vampire. That's off the table. Two, become mortal yourself. Nick's worried because if he, fucks up the sip in, which he does immediately, she'll die and he'll have to turn her into a vampire or let her die. And then Nat sort of brings up this idea of faith in an afterlife, basically. And she has it. She believes there's a world after this. And Nick, who's been an undead vampire for 300 years, 800 years, he's just like, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in an afterlife. I think this is all we've got. And she's just like, well, I don't know where we're going to be together, but it's got to be one of those three. You mortal, me vamp, or in the afterlife, I guess, because those are the only options you're giving me.
It's very Wuthering Heights.
Yeah, so after he sucked all her blood out, she's laying there just completely on the ground. Nick's fucked it up. And LaCroix comes in like he's Kramer on Seinfeld. He just busts through the door.
That's a good analogy. He just comes in and is like, what do you guys... Oh, you drank too much.
Nick, what have you done?
Spot on.
And LaCroix basically is like, well, you've got two options now. You better turn into a vampire before she completely dies or let her die. And Nick... He's been very clear up front. He's not turning her into a vampire. That's not happening. So he stands over her and lets her die. And I was just like, wild. Everybody's dying. Everybody's going to die.
Yeah. And then he gives LaCroix, like, I guess it's like a staff of some sort. And he's basically...
Yeah, it's like a stake. A wooden stake, basically. It's really long.
He's basically like, I'm making my choice. It's option 3, afterlife. And then what's the last thing that LaCroix says? He's basically like, you're foolish or something like that, right?
Well, they kind of have that continuing conversation. Like, we get that monologue. He actually goes back and gives the entire monologue he gave at the start about, like, suicide and life and, like, depression and things. And Nick is just like, I've done too much damage. I've ruined all the two options I had with her that I believed in are now gone. So the only option now is I have to have the faith she had, and I guess we'll just have to be together in the afterlife. Mm-hmm. And, LaCroix, as he's done all episode, he's just like, he doesn't... like it. He doesn't think it's the way to go. He thinks it's a mistake. He thinks there's still lots of life to live. But as Nick says, he's like, you're my best friend and you're the only one I can trust to do it, because Nick, I guess, won't do it himself. So he gives the staff over, and LaCroix, because they're best friends, he raises it up above Nick and he's going to jam it into his chest. And as it comes down, we hard cut. We never see it actually happen, but that's the end of Forever Night. We just get a shot of the sky. And I guess Nick has also died at the end.
Yeah. These LaCroix's killed him and everyone's dead. And what they've left is maybe, if you believe in an afterlife, maybe these two have found each other. Otherwise, that's it. They're dead.
And then the credits come on. They start playing, let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the floor.
No, it's the Forever Night. No, I can't remember. I was listening to the Forever Night theme in the car today just to make myself laugh because it's such a funny theme. But yeah, that's the end of the show. And arguably, maybe since Space Above and Beyond, we haven't seen a finale as dark as this.
I don't know if we've ever seen a finale tie up as much as this.
Well, they knew they were finishing.
Yeah. I guess maybe when we watched First Wave, that one was pretty conclusive. But I don't know if I've ever seen a series conclude with the death of every single main character, with the exception of LaCroix.
Yeah, and that's the weird, interesting thing. If you consider him as the villain or whatever, he's the only one that lives, and he I guess is going to go off to another town, and he's also just kind of left by himself because all these people, Jeanette and Nick, and all these people that have been with him for years are all gone.
Yeah, well, I guess Jeanette's still alive, and maybe he'll hang out with Captain Joe Reese. He's still alive.
Yeah, there you go.
I guess we don't know the captain from the first season is dead, so maybe the three of them will team up.
That's true. He just had a different precinct.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I gotta say, I mean, I feel many ways about this, and I went and looked at the IMDb ratings for this episode, and there's only 2 people have only written reviews about it, and I thought it was a perfect encapsulation of the end of the series. Is one of the reviews is 1 star, and extremely upset, feels betrayed by the series, that this is the finale, that this is what Nat did, this is how they all die. Like, he felt very betrayed by the end of the series. And the other review was not 1 star, but 10 stars, and felt like it was the tonally perfect wrap up to the series. So I feel like, as a person who might have loved this show, who watched it all the way through, you're either going one way, that you either like this or you hate this. Like, it's such, in some ways, kind of the right move, I feel like, for a series finale. Like, I think it's better to just take a huge swing and do something insane. You might as well end on, like, the craziest note.
They did do a huge
That's
swing.
what the show's doing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think you could look at it either way. I have sort of a third option, which is that I never really liked this show very much, right? So I don't have that emotional connection, and I found...
Yeah, I know your third option. You're going to kill yourself and live in the afterlife.
Yeah, I'm going to kill myself and live in the afterlife. But I think you're right, though. Of someone who really liked this show and who was invested in these characters and invested in this world, I can see how you would feel like, I can't believe you've done this. I spent all this time, these hundreds of hours, and you've killed my characters. Or if you're really into that, you love the melodrama and you love how over the top it is, and this fantasy and this romance. And like, yeah, how are you going to do it? Well, we're going to kill the characters. That's the most romantic thing ever, right? This Shakespearean ending.
Yeah, I'm like, it must be so controversial. This ending must be so controversial to fans.
Yeah. Well, we should have asked Kapelos how he feels.
You can pay the $65 and get a cameo.
Yeah. Please, someone do it. He's like, why am I getting all these Forever Night questions now?
Listen, I don't know if we're technically allowed to use that on a podcast, so let's not maybe alert him to it.
Fair enough.
I don't want Kapelos coming after me.
Yeah, we're not making any money. Don't worry about it, John.
He was great, everybody. Kapelos.
He was
throw him
great.
Some cash. Like I said, $65 for a cameo. It's a steal.
It was great.
Anyway, let's get to rating last night, the final episode of Forever Night. Here's
what I'll say. As you mentioned, very interesting idea, very different tonally from different shows. I don't know if I have a knee-jerk reaction to the clip show stuff. I know it fills in some blanks, but it just also feels like things are short, you know? And I didn't really love the monologuing. Again, I understand all the style and stuff. It just... For me, it's just not a show that works, even though I understand the mechanics and why it should. It's just something I just don't enjoy. I'm going to go right down the middle, though, and give it a 5 out of 10.
5 out of 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still hard to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I think it's an interesting finale. Like, I would not have expected this to be the finale.
No, I didn't either. I
think it's pretty light on content in general, and kind of a bit of a rush job. I think that's just... probably due to the fact that it's lightly serialized, probably like series are at this time, but you got to do a lot of heavy lifting in this episode to like give people to the places you need them to be that they probably weren't at the end of the last episode.
Yeah.
I think it's too much of a mess for me to be like, this is a great episode. I think it's interesting. So I'm going to give it
That's how I feel. It's really interesting.
So I'm going to give it a 6, I think. I think that's the best I can do. It's interesting. I don't necessarily love what they've done for the characters, but at least it was a huge swing. I don't quite know how to feel about it, basically. I'm just like, what a crazy way to end this series.
Yeah, there's a sort of almost like nihilistic sort of feeling to the end of the show of just like, guess what? It was all pointless. And that's the point of being a vampire. Like, oh, okay.
I mean, that's fair. Like, that's the real vampire trope. So it's just like, oh, I guess maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Anyways, but that's Forever Night. I mean, it was and I know it feel like I've been hard on it. I've tried to be fair. I was very excited about watching this show, and I really wanted to like it. And every week I was like, come on, let's do it. It just didn't hit it for me. It was a show that yeah, it just didn't work for me, and I really wanted it to, and I was excited. I think, you know, you have to give some explanation that maybe, you know, somewhere I was looking for a show that this just didn't want to be, which is maybe not fair, you know.
Jordan, is it bad that I knew before we even started the series? I knew exactly what was going to play out. It was going to play out exactly like this for you. I knew from like before we started. I know you too well. I knew exactly how this was going to play out.
Yeah, I wanted to like it. I remember I was like, but we were joking because we're, you know, picking shows and stuff. I must have requested like 3 times. I'm like, it's got to be this show. It's a vampire cop. And then it's like, oh, this is not Starsky and Hutch. You know?
Yeah, I knew 100% before we started that this was going to be unbearable for you. Like everything about it is everything you hate and shows that you watch. Like I knew it going in. So I'm impressed you stuck it out as long as you did. You made it further than I thought you ever would. And you were giving it better ratings than I knew you wanted to. So I appreciated that.
But I will say, you found it more interesting than I did. And I'm kind of surprised how much you got out of it, or how much you found was kind of funny and how much you found was quirky and stuff. Because again, I was watching and be like, this is the most boring thing I've ever seen. But and we would do the recording, and then after the recording, I was like, are we watching the same show? Like Luke is just loving it. And I know you're not loving it, but you know what I mean? Like you were getting things that I wasn't, but part of it could have just been that let's be honest, it's terrible. I was kind of tuning out at parts because I was just like, you know, like a lot of shows we've watched, sometimes you get the mechanics very early on, and I'm like, well, I know that the speech that Jeanette and Nick are giving, it's back history that I don't care about, so it doesn't matter to the episode, so I'm not going to pay attention anymore. And so I would start doing that sort of thing, which is not entirely fair, but it's just because you knew I knew who the killer was 5 minutes into the episode, you know?
Yeah. I mean, maybe that was my bigger surprise, is that I figured out what it was that people liked about it, and I was like, oh, I see what's fun about this. And I mean, I like, that's the thing. Here's what I was gonna say is like, I had a sense of what genre of vampire show this was, so I knew going in it meant it was melodrama, and it was like character relationships, and it wasn't going to be like the best. This wasn't going to be Interview with a Vampire. This was going to be a subversion of that.
Right.
And
right.
so I know that as soon as people start talking about relationships and like just not non-meaningful things, but things that aren't like going to be part of the plot, I knew it was going to be something that was going to be a drag for you. So I think you put up with it longer than I expected, and good for you.
Well, thank you. I don't know how much credit I should get, but I should say it leaves an interesting question, though, is for people who might be listening to this, is this a show you might like? It really is. Do you lean more where Luke is? Do you lean more where I am in terms of like preferences? Because like on our Venn diagram, you and I have pretty close things we seem to enjoy or not like, but this one is a little bit different. And I guess it really depends on what you kind of like and don't like, how much you're going to get out of this type of show, you know? Like you could have very different experiences, clearly.
Yeah. I think this is the kind of thing is like, if you like an Interview with a Vampire, if you like a Twilight, if you like that kind of like really like over the top kind of emotionally driven thing,
like irony free.
It's not a great version of this, but it's the kind of thing you might be able to put on in the background and get used to the characters and kind of have fun with those characters.
Yeah.
If you're like, sit down, you're like, vampire cop, what kind of crazy adventures is he going to get up to? This is not for you.
Yeah, fair. And that's, so don't be like me, people.
Well, Jordan, you want to hear what the final rating is with our last two ratings in the thing?
Oh, I think it's going to be just about 5, like right up with them in the middle.
It's pretty close. I think we come to the final conclusion of a 4.88 on the series.
Yeah. And a lot of shows kind of fall under that. We're like, obviously once we take the escape pod, they're just under a 5, but it's just about there. And yeah, again, it kind of depends, I think. If you're, if it was just your scores, it's more of like a 5.5, 6, and if it's more me, it's more of a 3.5, 4.
Yeah, I think you come closer to a 4 and I come closer to like a 6 for sure.
Yeah. So pretty fair.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable aspect. Like, I think if you think about both of our journeys on the show, you can see about where we fell. So.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you think people are going to pick this for bonus episodes for charity?
Well, they might. There is one episode. I'm not gonna tell you what it is, but maybe, I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll want the AIDS episode. I don't know. But I do know there's one episode that a few people brought up that we didn't get to. It was on our list, but we didn't get to it.
Yeah.
And I also was very interested in it. So maybe they'll come back.
It's not the one where Natalie uses the blood to help the mentally challenged teenager, is it? That sounds horrific.
I mean, now that you've brought it up, who knows? Like, anything's on the table now. But as I've said repeatedly over the last few weeks, and I'm going to do it again as quickly as I can here, we have bonus episodes for charity. You make a donation to a charity as chosen by our past guests. We'll go back and watch a show from a series that we have that we've skipped over, like an episode of a series that we've skipped over. So like in Forever Night, we're doing best of. We're doing the top 3 episodes of each season, and in this case, we also took the Escape Pod. It leaves a lot of episodes we didn't end up watching.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a special one in the mix there. You're like, I really wish these 2 idiots would go back and watch this for some reason and talk about it for 45 minutes.
Vampire
This is
AIDS.
your opportunity to do that. You can get all the details at continuumdrag.podbean.com. That's the website, or on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I don't know if it's on Facebook, but hopefully. There are links to our website, and there are links that will bring you right to the bonus episodes for charity write-ups. You can learn all about it. You can click some more, follow some links, and you'll find out all the episodes we haven't watched. All that information's there. If you have any questions on how it works, you can just email us continuumdrag@gmail.com, and I can explain it far more succinctly in the written form. So, lots of ways to ask us questions about it.
Yeah. And don't tell him that, don't tell John Kapelos we had him on our show.
He was the unwitting guest of Continuum Drag. At any rate, if you want any clips from these episodes, and there's a few fun clips from these. It's only 1 episode, so we had to pull a bunch.
You know what's a great clip? What we both mentioned was the weird dissolves and the moving camera of that conversation between Nick and Natalie. It's insanely directed. Like it's like a Michael Bay choice. You're like, why would anyone do this for this scene?
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff there. I definitely have Natalie saying, "What the?"
Oh yeah, when Nick goes, I'm a vampire.
But there's some fun clips. So you're
Yeah.
going to see those on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Continuum Drag is the handle on all of those. But that's it. This wraps up Forever Night, Jordan. You're free. You're free to live your
free.
life in the.
Yeah,
You don't have to fall in love with Nick anymore.
that's true. Him and his he cut his hair too, huh?
Yeah, I know. All new hair.
All new hair.
Imagine we'd gone 2 more episodes. You'd be begging LaCroix to kill you.
Probably true.
All right. Well, listener, thank you for joining us. And Jordan, I'll see you next
We'll
week.
see you then.
Continuum Drag is recorded in Toronto, Ontario, and Seoul, South Korea. Theme music by James Rick Seidler. Produced by Jordan Delick and Luke Black. Special thanks to Aaron Yunes.